Welcome. Today we will unveil a story that could have changed the course of World War II. The story of an airplane whose name became a symbol of victory, but whose beginnings almost derailed all plans. In just 2 months from the signing of the contract in October 1941, engineers designed a project that could have been a revolution or a complete failure, and everything depended on a single detail. Why did this fighter aircraft start its life as a limited capability project, and why was its fate potentially decisive for the outcome of the battle? At the same time, at the other end of Europe, secret agreements and hidden strategies were unfolding, events that could have completely shifted the balance of power. Was it easier to follow a path that almost no one noticed? This is not just about military technology. At stake are the fates of millions, the true reasons for success and failure, concealed behind official history. We will show how an unconventional project, created in just 102 days, became a key to air dominance, and what might have happened if initial technical limitations had halted it halfway. Are you ready to see what lies behind the wings of this aviation legend? Then let's begin. In the sky, filled with the sounds of moving propellers, a new shadow emerged. It appeared quietly, almost imperceptibly, the first signs of change. At that time, in October 1943, German pilot Klaus Musch, an experienced warrior with a sharp eye, was observing aircraft that had, for the first time in a long while, entered his line of sight. These air giants, a whole flock of new bombers, missiles, fate-changing for future aviation warfare, had inexplicably appeared in Europe. Before Musch's eyes unfolded a series of events that changed the course of history. Let's start with the fact that during this period, air combat was not happening by chance. Fierce battles were raging, in which the Allies faced serious difficulties. The American bombers, Lancaster and Liberator, were mighty heavyweights, striking with incredible power. They fell not only under enemy fire but also because of their own ineffective defenses. Losing up to a third of their strength on each mission became a tragic norm. While these metal behemoths attacked their targets, the frontline airspace demanded protection capable of ensuring their safety. But the existing fighters were aircraft with limited range, with capabilities incapable of providing long-lasting deep support. They were not the shield that could carry them through a hail of enemy fire. This was a time when the need arose in the sky to find solutions. German fighters like the Focke-Wulf FW-190 and Messerschmitt Bf-109 demonstrated mastery and strength, holding back Allied advances. Their maneuverability, speed, and armament created a deadly lost rate effect, where valuable resources and ammunition, most of the equipment, went up in flames because air support could neither cover the entire distance nor ensure safety at assigned altitudes. Every day, battles rustled, whipped, and roared in the sky, where the professionalism of German pilots and the mistakes of thoughtless strategies turned aerial combat into a bloody trap. History, however, knows that such a situation could have existed long ago, even before the first combat prototypes appeared. In April of 1940, on the initiative of the Royal Navy Air Service and Western Allies, a project for a new fighter aircraft was born, which was meant to be a response to the demands of the time. It was named the P-51, but it's important to understand, the world still did not realize its true power. At that stage, it was just an idea, an almost embryonic version of a future hero. Unlike conventional global standards, this project emerged in the shadows, without loud declarations or Hollywood-style videos. It was created under conditions where North American Aviation, a company known not for designing combat aircraft, had never before built a single heavy combat fighter. The details and construction were developed not on a blank slate but in haste, based on carefully crafted lines and blueprints, within the confines of quality control and technical limitations, in conditions where everything pointed to the fact that creating such an aircraft was an almost impossible task. The most surprising part was that its value lay in the simplicity and speed of development. In just over 3 months, from the signing of the contract, engineers and aviation specialists began turning the idea into metal. The first prototype, designated NA-73X, the working model, already demonstrated promise in tests for speed and stability. It opened a door to a new world of possibilities, but there too, a fly in the ointment was found. The engine used in the first version of this aircraft, the Allison V-1710, defined the limits of its altitude capabilities. The altitude restriction virtually cut short its potential as a strategic tool capable of dominating at high altitudes. At times, it seemed that this airplane only lived in the lower and middle layers of the atmosphere, in those regions where fire and smoke were less merciless. Nevertheless, during the initial development phase, the project incorporated something far greater than merely experimental drawings. The original design was based on mass production principles, with maximal aerodynamic efficiency and minimal manufacturing complexity. It was aimed at rapid mass production, making it potentially an invaluable soldier on a large scale of wartime. The most paradoxical feature was that the initial concept was intended for low and medium altitude operations, places where maneuverability and speed more often determined advantage than high altitude performance. However, the fate of this prototype turned out to be far from obvious. It emerged as a possible solution, a potential catalyst for victory, and at the same time, its destiny could have taken a different course. Analyzing the content of the early prototypes reveals that the ideas behind them were far from a strategy of global superiority. Why, then, did the development go off course? Immutable facts testified to technical and strategic limitations, the time required to complete the work, and the potential consequences of failure. But could it have been assumed that after nearly 3 months, considering all the problems encountered during development, something so revolutionary would emerge that it would change the course of the war? Such was the fundamental question hanging over the project. Could this canonical example of quick creation and low cost ultimately become a true victor, or, on the contrary, turn out to be a failure because the initial techniques and constraints simply prevented it from realizing its full potential? Could all these technical nuances, unforeseen complexities, and strategic decisions lead to a situation where even the slightest chance faced an irreversible fate? Undoubtedly, this question remains open, but it is precisely this uncertainty that defines the meaning of this story. And here, at the heart of this fateful struggle, two paths emerge. The first is the path of probability and disappearance, where the project would have perished at the outset due to lack of energy, resources, or strategic understanding. The second is the path of revolution, where the very technology created in record time would lead to radical changes on the front, playing a decisive role in the global war. This question constantly intrigues historians, engineers, and military strategists, because if not for the technical limitations, if the project had not faced its initial failures, perhaps history would have been different. That is the primary conflict. Does everything depend on technical factors, or is there room for chance, for a fateful incident that could alter everything? But the most intriguing aspect is that these seemingly modest developments, hundreds of days, countless drawings, thousands of parts, turned out to be a creative force capable of changing the outcome of the war. The unanswered question is, what would have happened if the project had failed at an early stage? Would it have become a legend or fallen into obscurity? And whether it would have, after overcoming its technical and strategic obstacles, become a reality that forever changed history? This is not merely a hypothesis. It is a lesson about the power of human ingenuity, about how in a short time it is possible to create weaponry capable of rewriting history. Like any story, this one is full of twists, mistakes, and incredible discoveries. And it demonstrates that even in the darkest hour, when it seems everything is lost, the ability to create something new can be the key to salvation, or, conversely, to disaster. That is where the truth lies, in that crucial moment when a hand takes hold of the drawing boards with a firm grip, and the last light of hope goes out in the heart. An understanding that the simplest solution, taken at the right time and in the right hands, can change everything, or destroy it. And every line of this story is a testament to the fact that behind each technology lies not only metal and mechanisms, but an entire destiny of millions, the fate of a war that perhaps was never meant to begin. Because destiny is not only preordained. Often, it is the result of our decisions and mistakes, our attempts and failures. This entire story is about how, in just over 3 months, people managed to create a weapon capable of changing the world, and how, perhaps, this became the most dangerous and astonishing part of their legacy. During the Second World War, when every millisecond decision could be decisive, one of the challenges facing military aviation was the development of a fighter aircraft that combined unique characteristics: a substantial fuel reserve, long endurance for strategic missions, and at the same time, speed, maneuverability, and technical stability without compromising aerodynamic efficiency. This was not merely a desire, it was a pressing necessity, one that determined the outcome of numerous air battles, the fate of operational plans, and ultimately, victory or defeat on the front lines. Building such an airplane from scratch would have been an impossible task if not for an engineering and strategic solution capable of transforming all notions of fighter capabilities. Against this backdrop, it is important to emphasize that one of the key aspects was wing modernization. It was through a revolutionary laminar flow profile concept that aerodynamic drag was reduced by about a third. These wings, which facilitated a smooth airflow transition, minimized resistance in areas where it previously reached critical levels, creating conditions for increased flight range while not compromising speed. This concept became part of a strategic idea: to equip the aircraft with the ability to stay airborne for extended periods, performing reconnaissance, interception, or ground support missions, while remaining maneuverable, fast, and reliable. Moreover, thanks to these wings, fuel efficiency was maximized, giving the design bureau the advantage to develop modifications that surpassed opponents in range and speed. In this way, through innovative aerodynamic solutions, a foundation was laid for future triumphs. However, achieving such goals was impossible without the right choice of power plant. The Allison V1710 engine was adopted, which powered the prototype's heart. This engine was a choice within the existing aerodynamic and technical solutions of the time, but it had its limitations. The adoption of the Allison meant that the aircraft could demonstrate its best qualities at medium altitudes, which was sufficient during the early stages of the war to accomplish initial missions. But undoubtedly, this engine, like its entire design, was not suited for high-altitude conditions or for prolonged intercepts that required long-range flight. It was here that difficulties began. This in itself turned out to be a minor problem, as engine technology was rapidly advancing, and the frontline requirements soon demanded even more. For now, it was Allison that defined the niche it could occupy. Reliable and tried and true, but not final. At the moment when the outcome of the war began to increasingly depend on the search for new strategic possibilities, hope appeared. In April 1942, when one of the first production aircraft experienced a new stage of evolution, a pilot named Ronald Harker emerged. This British aviator, a specialist not only in aviation, but also in the abandoned yet significant logic of aerial combat, became the first to test the upgraded design in combat conditions. In his sight, the fate of the aircraft was changing. As a witness to the era, it embodied not only engineering solutions, but also the possibility of reaching new heights, literally and metaphorically. But the changes in the design were not limited to adding a new engine. A significant transformation involved overhaul of the cooling systems, redesigning the internal structure, and installing more powerful radiators. The equipment had to operate under conditions where strict requirements were imposed. It had to withstand not only higher temperatures, but also ensure reliable operation at maximum engine modes at high altitudes. This comprehensive redesign did not just alter the perceived capabilities of the aircraft. It became a turning point. It was what opened the strategic role for a machine that previously seemed merely a tool for specific tasks. Now it was a weapon capable of fighting for higher goals, demonstrating that proper engineering solutions, combined with a full understanding of strategy, could exceed all expectations. Facilitating mass production was one of the main tasks during wartime. Engineers and technicians at North American Aviation developed a so-called schematic production system, which in a short period was able to provide the output of hundreds of aircraft. As a result, during the war, more than 1,000 fighters were produced, and afterward, their total number exceeded 15,000. This figure created a unique force, an unprecedented number of machines, identical in design with the same characteristics, ready to take to war at any moment. Automation processes used during assembly, involving modern production management, logistical chains, and strict quality control, quickly proved their effectiveness. The production became a symbol of industrial power, and the aircraft an embodiment of engineering genius. Ahead, new opportunities, new scenarios, and a new role within the overall strategic picture unfolded. But the main question hanging over this development was, how possible was it to achieve such efficiency and range without radical changes to the power plant and associated engineering solutions? Could similar results have been achieved without engine replacement or a fundamental reconstruction of systems? Or was it precisely the combination of these elements that gave rise to what we now call a historic achievement? This question is not only about the technical implementation of the past, it remains a challenge for analysts and engineers. Let us recall, every step, every innovation, every decision made at that time was not only the result of engineering calculations, but also a reflection of strategic priorities and political will. It was precisely because technological and strategic prerequisites merged, born out of the need to outperform, not only the enemy but also oneself, that these factors made it possible to go beyond conventional boundaries. As a result, a machine emerged capable of altering the balance of power in the sky. After all, it was the ability to innovate, combined with proper timing and integration, that enabled the creation of a fighter aircraft that not only met the demands of its time, but also transformed it. It is important for us to understand that it was through this intellectual genius of engineering solutions and strategic foresight that a new pinnacle in aviation development was achieved, one that was by no means merely a technical accomplishment, but became a symbol of an era, a testament to how ideas and technologies fused to change the face of warfare forever. In the cold shadows of December skies over Europe, as the sun dipped toward the horizon and the air filled with an uneasy silence, a new hero appeared in the history of aerial combat, an icon of freedom, hope, and power. It was the P-51D, a plane that was not just a part of strategic calculations, but changed the entire fabric of air battles. What engineering miracle is embedded in its design? How exactly did this steel predator manage to overturn the balance of power? The story begins in December of 1943, when this combat eagle took to the air to become invisible, unnoticed, and undefeated, escorting heavy bombers. The era when the aviation front was an arena of deadly clashes was replaced by a new one. On the blue sky, a new symphony sounded, the symphony of Mustang, confidently, boldly, and with the assurance that each appearance offered a chance for victory, a chance to change the fate of millions. The greatest contribution to this success was the new strategy, innovative technical solutions, and tactics born in the heart of command cabins and workshops. The introduction of long-range external fuel tanks was revolutionary. These bright red, confidence-inspiring plates extended the aircraft's range to an astonishing distance for that era, just over 1,650 miles. These additional miles, these deep penetrations into German rear areas, all of this made the mighty aviation of the German Reich vulnerable, weak, and unstable. The enemy understood that short attacks and limited raids could no longer be relied upon. Now, thanks to lightweight, removable fuel tanks, the Stonebirds could carry their destructive load much farther, into the heart of industrial Germany, destroying all obstacles that slowed down the Allies. It was this range that made possible something previously unseen, reducing lethal losses for bombers to a level that seemed fantastic. Fact-checking shows that with engine power and steel grip of the Mustang Escort, losses decreased from a dangerous 20% to less than 5%. Today, this seems incredible, even impossible. But for pilots and ground crews, it was a reality, a chance to survive, a chance to complete the mission. They saw how, flying over a devastated landscape, bombers felt more protected, and combat resilience soared to unreachable heights. How could one aircraft, not armed with mass attacks, have such power? The answer lies not only in technical implementation, in construction, in aerodynamic precision. It was embedded in strategy, in a tactical revolution. The shift from passive defense to active hunting paved a new way for Allied forces. Previously, dogfights between hunter fighters and German aces amounted to an expensive, dangerous game of survival. Now the P-51 became a hunter. Its role was not just escort or support. It became a predator, seeking and destroying the enemy. German fighters, once considered a formidable force, began facing a new reality. Their enemies learned how to attack, shoot down, and escape, leaving points of vulnerability along German lines of defense. They became more resolute, more dangerous. In such conditions, breaking German air supremacy was no longer just a desire, it became a necessity. The idea of dominance in the sky was turning into reality, into a power capable not only of defense, but also of attack. Deep at the heart of this change were large operations, one after another. Operation Big Week is a prime example. In February 1944, Allied air forces destroyed the main production capacity of the German aviation industry within days. This was a blow to factories, airfields, warehouses, and armament depots. The strength of these strikes was the result not only of commanders' inspiration, but also of the technical capabilities of the aircraft. It was during this period that events evolved along not only tactical, but also technological frontiers. The model P-51D, with a fully transparent canopy, equipped with 6-caliber machine guns and a new engine, became a symbol of the era. This aircraft was not just a machine. It was an icon of aerial combat, a symbol of a new era trusted not only by engineers and pilots, but by an entire generation, who believed in the power of the human-made mechanism. The glass canopy was an open door to the future, representing transparency, confidence, and technological superiority. Daily combat operations confirmed. Trust in this aircraft was key to victory. The task facing the Allies was to create a craft capable not only of resisting, but also of dominating. At its core was the integration of the British Merlin engine and American design. The union of two great factories, two sciences, two cultures, both striving for the same goal. The result was an aircraft that shattered German air defenses, surpassed all expectations, and became an invulnerable eagle flying through the fog of war, leaving behind wreckage and destruction. This alliance of technology and strategy exemplifies how collaboration, compromise, and genius can change the course of history. Its outcomes are not only victories in the sky, but also a transformation of aerial combat tactics, turning the P-51 into a weapon that outperformed everything that came before. The story of this aircraft is not only a chronicle of engineering feats, but also a tale of ideas united, of friendship between two nations, of faith in technology, and of mankind's ability to alter the course of war. It demonstrates how innovations, thoughtfully conceived and strategically implemented, can radically change the conditions of battle. In this shift of eras and tactics, the primary strength lies in cooperation and scientific ingenuity. Thus, one era ended, and a new one began, the age of air power, where daring, intelligence, and technology united to dismantle old orders and establish new standards, forever altering history. The aircraft born from this union became not merely a machine, but a symbol of victory, an example of the possibilities unlocked by the union of ideas, technology, and human perseverance. Such is the P-51D, a forger of air battles, destroyer of German air defenses, and emblem of change, forever etched into the annals of history. 80 years ago, a new star rose in Europe's sky, Mustang, steadfast and gleaming, as a symbol of technological superiority. This plane became not just a tool of military power, but an embodiment of the changes shaping the face of war, spirit, and morale of millions. Understanding how these metal predators managed to turn the tide of air battles and ultimately influence the entire campaign is a question that extends beyond tactics and technicalities. It concerns morality, the cost of victory, the value of human lives, and whether the methods used by the victorious side were justified. Against this backdrop, one of the main heroes of that era emerged, the P-51 Mustang, a plane that forever entered history as a symbol of supremacy. Its emergence marked not just another step in the development of aviation, but a fundamental shift in the strategic situation in Europe. During the pre-war and wartime periods, aviation losses became an increasingly serious problem, but technological advances elevated it to the status of a weapon capable of changing the rules of the game. Thanks to its range, maneuverability, and ability to carry a significant arsenal of weapons, this aircraft became the most dangerous tool for the enemy. In-depth analysis shows that the superiority of the P-51 forced the German Luftwaffe to implement radical tactical changes. German pilots, aware of the Mustang's power and realizing that their chances of survival sharply decreased, were compelled to abandon European airspace. These were not just words, these were actions. Pilots left the skies with constant anxiety, German radar and missile armaments aimed into the void as their target, the elusive Anglo-Saxon aircraft, disappeared over the horizon. This domino effect led to the exhaustion of the Luftwaffe, a snowball of losses that gradually undermined the combat effectiveness of German air power. While initially German aviation resisted fiercely and stubbornly, by the end it became a shadow of itself, as new pilots, trained with less experience, fell victim to relentless attacks. This was not only a technical victory, it was a psychological blow. The fact that a pilot in the cockpit could attack an enemy without risking his own life created a sense of hopelessness and helplessness among the Germans. When continuous raids destroyed cities, factories, strategic warehouses, and each explosion in the sky confirmed dominance, the question arose, what is the moral legacy left by this struggle? The fear remaining in the hearts of German pilots and civilians exceeded all expectations. The victorious sky was stained with the blood of dying American and British aircraft, and this psychological factor, the destruction of confidence, became a key component of the overall moral imbalance. The use of strategic bombing in mass operations is also recognized as ambiguous. The Mustang technology proved so effective that it allowed strikes on German industry, logistics, bridges, and railway hubs. Each destruction had consequences capable of triggering a chain reaction of resistance. This inflicted significant economic damage, undermining Germany's financial and material foundations. The reduction in weapons production, the slowdown of factory output, and delays in preparing new combat aircraft all contributed to even the most resilient fighters feeling vulnerable, and a widespread exhaustion was felt on the front line, in the rear, and in the skies. However, behind this success lay a heavy ethical question. Some critics believed that the use of rapid, precise strategic strikes was not only a matter of technological warfare, but also a war of morals. Part 10 of 15. Caring for civilians, for innocent people affected by bombings. What is more important, victory or morality? Were these bombings justified, or did they become a tool that destroys not only the enemy, but also humanity? Debates arose about how justified these multi-sacrifice raids on cities. Centuries-old towns where families, children, and the elderly lived are in the context of seeking victory. Often criticized, these strategies sparked controversy even within the military elite itself. Some believed that such large-scale strikes helped to hold the front lines longer, an image of a strong hand that, it seemed, spares no one and nothing in its path. But at the same time, a counter-effect emerged. civilian suffering, turning peaceful settlements into ruins, dying cities with bells and broken cathedrals, and streets drowning in dust. The soundtrack of these tragedies, screams, explosions, and devastation, became part of their harsh reality. This conflict is not only about soldiers on the front, but also about people left in destroyed houses, with shattered destinies and no future, as if they are hostages to their own passion for victory. In this context, the image of German pilots becomes particularly vivid. Their despair is born from every glance cast skyward. They know that chances of victory are shrinking, that they have less and less strength, and their inner crisis is not only a burden of military discipline, but also a psychological break, no less destructive than any explosion. Mass exhaustion, rebellions, and even desertion arose as symptoms of fading faith. The evidence is irrefutable. German pilots increasingly abandoned their planes without waiting for orders. Fear of the inevitable and terror of death overcame all tactical considerations. Sometimes it seemed that even at the very heart of what remained of the Luftwaffe, a weakening feeling was emerging, that these young, energetic pilots, are merely targets in a global confrontation driven by technology and political will. And in all this, one can see not only the consequences, but even the very essence of war itself. Or perhaps, its moral meaning. Can technological achievements, all these airplanes, rockets, high-speed engines, justify the scale of deaths and suffering? Can victory be considered achieved if it comes at the cost of thousands of human lives for strategic advantages? These questions remain without a definitive answer. They are like a shadow that haunts all our reflections on war. How the drama of the moment intensifies. How a heavy burden falls on the shoulders of those who bear the moral cross of victory. And ultimately, if we look back at an era when innovation and morality clashed in a deadly struggle, there emerges one unchanging truth. Victory in war does not always mean victory in spirit. It is often a price paid with blood, tears, and lost souls. And this Hamilton, like a mirror reflecting not only military strategy, but also the human tragedy of those who were forced to make choices, whose decisions became part of history, forever etched in the memory of the people. The American P-51 Mustang fighter, shattered into millions of metal pieces, covered with a layer of faded paint, and tempered in the flames of combat trials, became a symbol of air supremacy in World War II. This machine, like lightning, tore through the skies and forever changed the course of history. But what forces truly endowed it with its potential? And how long did this dominance remain stable? How unique was this aircraft compared to other rapidly evolving weapons systems? And most importantly, was its supremacy a temporary phenomenon, or did it depend on unseen factors, on technology, industrial capacity, and political will? To answer these questions, one must analyze not only the facts, but also the entire context of the era in which this aircraft was created. Before us lies a world where the air is not just a space for flight. At that historical moment, the airspace became an arena of limitless possibilities, and at the same time, painful limitations. In the 1940s, when the storm of World War II broke, aviation technology worldwide split into two main groups, those based on traditional technical principles and those embracing the jet revolution. It is worth recalling that while the P-47 Thunderbolt was distinguished by its indestructibility, its ability to survive even serious damage, its smaller range made it more of a vigilant guardian of the skies rather than a versatile long-range fighter. In the sky, it could skillfully distract enemy non-flying destruction carriers and cover ground operations. But at the same time, its limited range prevented it from fully covering strategic targets deep behind enemy lines. Opposite it appeared other models, the P-38 Lightning, an unusual asymmetric aircraft with two engines, almost a symbol of the technological daring of that era. In the Pacific, Lightning demonstrated its strength, outperforming Japanese rotary wing aircraft in speed and maneuverability. It was almost an ideal tool for dogfights and for tightly escorting naval groups. Nevertheless, in Europe, it was not as widely used as the more versatile solutions. Here arose challenges with maintenance, problems requiring resources that America, despite its enormous industrial power, always aimed to optimize before the war. Maintenance encompassed not only repairs but also crew training, system upgrades, and constant technological renewal. In this regard, the P-51 appeared more technologically advanced and easily adaptable, ultimately earning its status as the flagship of the U.S. Air Force. During these same years, amidst the shake of high technology and accelerated development, another highly unexpected player entered the scene, the German jet fighter Mi-262. This aircraft, like a giant of future aerial combat, watched all of this with a mesmerizing combination of speed and power. It seemed to carve through the air, accelerating to speeds that piston-engine aircraft could only dream of. Its advantages were undeniable and significantly increased the danger for any crew, including the P-51, as now aerial racing became a race of technology. But, and here's where the devil lies in the details, the development and deployment of the Mi-262 were delayed. Technical difficulties, production issues, resource shortages, political and strategic decisions all contributed to this miracle aircraft, appearing in strikes only in the final stages of the war, well after initial expectations. Against this background of technical and conceptual diversity, competitors emerged, often seeming important at first glance, but ultimately lagging behind in terms of industrial potential and numbers. The same French, British, and Soviet aviation achievements could have made a difference, if not for the state of the international balance of power. In particular, the Soviet Union, creating its fighters like the Yak-3 or La-5, outperformed in maneuverability and reputation. However, their mass production and technological level could not compete with the giant of American industry, which was reviving entire cities and factories to produce new aircraft. That was America's strength, allowing companies to ramp up mass production, refine logistics, stabilize inventories, and establish assembly lines, all to ensure unwavering aerial superiority. Yet despite unprecedented industrial success and technological agility, the facts brightly illuminate the notion that the technical dominance of the P-51 was, roughly speaking, temporary. Its advantages depended on specific conditions, the level of the opponent, time, and place. In the long run, the development of jet aircraft, their speed, range, and armament capabilities completely devalued piston engine designs, concessions looming over projects like the P-51. This was not only a matter of technology, but also an era of change demanding new solutions and new rules of the game. Can a wall built on outdated technology stand forever? Or is it merely a temporary fortress in an ongoing race for progress? How long could supremacy based on mechanics and resilience be maintained? And how truly sustainable was it if everything around, market, technological, and strategic, was constantly changing? This question continues to resurface, reminding us of the fragility of any victory, dominance, or empire in the sky. The overview of this development in air technology leads to the thought that even the most advanced piston engine systems, which once seemed to represent the pinnacle of engineering thought, eventually faced the limits of their capabilities. The era in which these machines were created was one of great hopes and great fears. It was a time when battles were fought not only against the enemy on the ground, but also within the very science and technology systems that were supposed to ensure victory. And even at a moment when it seemed that the American P-51 was an invincible machine, there was no certainty that it could withstand the onslaught of the jet revolution that specialists, engineers, and strategists talked about. Analyzing this history, we come to an important conclusion. Supremacy is always temporary. It depends on technology, resources, political will, and time. Most importantly, it depends on how quickly a country can adapt to new challenges. Otherwise, any dominant weapon system, even such legendary and iconic as the P-51 Mustang, over time turns into an illusion of history, a bright but fleeting reflection of its era. Truly understanding this prompts us to ask ourselves, do today's systems seem to be permanently in our possession? Is the lift of national superiority something eternal? Or will the world, both today and tomorrow, continue its race, where the old gives way to the new, and even the boldest achievements will eventually be just grains of sand in the eternal struggle for air dominance? The story from 60 years ago remains undoubtedly one of the key lessons in military technology and strategic thinking. At the center of this story is a legendary aircraft that became a symbol of engineering brilliance, organizational resilience, and unmatched tactics. This aircraft, known as the P-51 Mustang, did not just play a crucial role in the air battles of World War II. It became a living testament to how the coherence of technology, strategic thinking, and mass production mechanisms can change the course of history. Originally built in response to the increasing demands of wartime, it grew into a symbol of victory, a model for future combat aircraft, and proof of the importance of a systemic approach to developing and implementing new technologies. During World War II, when the fight for control of the skies reached a critical point, the P-51 became more than just one among many aircraft on Allied airfields. It became a model of American engineering power. In those years, a country experiencing a crisis and mobilization doubled its efforts to invest resources in technological development and industrial organizational capacity. Design bureaus worked efficiently and cohesively, striving to combine aerodynamic efficiency with mass production capabilities. As a result, they produced not just magnificent flying machines, but standards that continued to influence fighter aircraft design for decades to come. This aircraft embodied the very best of its era, striving for perfection, innovation, and mass efficiency. The P-51 design became a model of human engineering thought. Its streamlined body, optimized aerodynamics, and carefully considered appearance were not merely technical details. They resulted from a systematic approach where every component interacted with others to create a cohesive and powerful flying platform. Specifically developed as a counter to the German Messerschmitt, it surpassed existing standards, setting new boundaries for aerodynamic and manufacturing capabilities. Its wings were calculated with such precision that the plane could stay airborne for extended periods, maintaining the accuracy and speed required for mission success. An important aspect was also its mass production. Thousands of units manufactured according to strict standards, ensuring not only efficiency, but also accessibility for the front lines. The principles embedded in the creation of the P-51 had a significant impact not only on the development of aviation technology, but also on the understanding of air superiority as a strategic resource. In aerial operations, dominance in the skies became the key to land success. Control over air zones, transparency, and the ability to strike constantly all became crucial for victory in large-scale war. The influence of technologies such as improved engines, navigation systems, and automated weapon systems enabled new generations of aircraft, and not only manned ones, to maintain strategic superiority. The role of intelligence, strategy, and technical precision remained unchanged. The legacy of the P-51 is not only a lesson about power and engineering genius. It forms a much broader conclusion about the necessity of international cooperation, the right combination of innovation with scalable manufacturing capabilities. Countries that managed to unite their industrial and scientific potential created a system capable not only of responding to current threats, but also of predicting future challenges. The experience of producing the P-51 shows that rapid response, flexible scaling, and a systematic approach to innovation are more important than mere technical superiority. This is a lesson that remains relevant today, in an era of rapid technological change and global challenges. Modern developments in jet and unmanned aerial vehicles are nothing more than the evolution of the concepts laid down during the Mustang era. Automation, communication, remote control, integration of surveillance and reconnaissance systems. All these are the evolution of the lessons learned from legendary aircraft of the past. Ideas implemented in the P-51's design have formed the basis of modern technologies capable of countering new threats, ensuring strategic stability, and enhancing defense capabilities. The World War-era aircraft demonstrated that a systematic, strategic, and technological approach is the key to victory. The story of the P-51 is not just a tale of technical achievement. It is a story of how a combination of engineering innovation, organizational mastery, and strategic thinking can lead to supremacy. This history confirms that modern security and efficiency require not only advanced technologies, but also the ability to integrate them into a unified system capable of adapting, evolving, and leading. In a rapidly changing world where new challenges demand new solutions, the principles embedded in the legendary Mustang remain relevant. By delving into the history of one of the greatest aircraft in history, its creation, its role in war, and its legacy, we understand that lessons from the past are incredibly valuable for today's and tomorrow's challenges. In an environment of global competition, technological progress, and constantly evolving threats, victory is achieved not just through armament or numbers, but through systemic coherence, strategy, and innovation. The history of the aviation revolution of the 1940s reminds us, sustainable dominance is built on the integration of technology, strategic battlefield considerations, and industrial energy. These principles work today just as they did in the era of the Mustang. They have not become obsolete because at their core lies the human capacity for innovation, readiness to act, and belief in the power of a systematic approach. That is why, looking toward the future, we must remember that developing and improving defense systems is not only a technological challenge, but also a call to unite knowledge, ideas, and efforts. Within this lesson lies a powerful answer to the question of how to achieve strategic stability in a world full of new threats and challenges. And the story of the P-51 reminds us that victory can only be achieved by uniting technology, strategic thinking, and industrial strength. This formula remains relevant today because it is the foundation of a future where supremacy is not only attained through battlefield wins, but is also built on systemic, structural, and integrated defenses that encompass all levels, from engineering innovations to global strategy.